Absolutely. Here's a asterisk, powerful, convicting, and spiritually grounded opening in the style of Tony Evans that grabs attention and compels the audience to listen to the full speech titled Trusting God and Taking a Risky Step of Faith studio opening words in Tony Evans style I don't know who I'm talking to today, but somebody in here is standing on the edge of something. You've been praying, you've been hoping, you've been waiting, but you've also been hesitating. Because what God is calling you to do doesn't make sense on paper. It doesn't fit in your budget, it doesn't line up with your plans, and it sure doesn't feel safe. But let me tell you something, faith was never meant to be safe. Faith is God's invitation to step out when your flesh wants to stay put. Faith says, I don't see the whole staircase, but I'm still gonna take the first step. C. Too many of us want the miracle without the movement. We want the promise without the process. But you can't walk in divine destiny while sitting in human comfort. At some point, you've got to trust that God knows what he's doing even when he won't explain it to you. And maybe that's you right now, paralyzed between where you are and where God is calling you to be. Caught between the familiar and the unknown, I came here today to tell you, God is not looking for the most qualified, he's looking for the most surrendered. He's not asking you to have all the answers. He's asking you to trust the one who does. So if you've ever faced a moment where you had to choose between comfort and calling, between logic and obedience, then you need to listen to every second of this word today. Because this might just be the push your faith has been waiting for. Don't move, don't scroll, don't check out. God's about to speak, and your next step might be the one that changes everything. Let me know if you'd like the closing call to action in a similar style once the full speech is done, or if you want me to build out the full segments now. You see, trusting God doesn't mean sitting in a place where everything makes sense. It doesn't mean you've got every question answered or every detail figured out. That's not trust, that's comfort dressed up as faith. Real trust is developed when the road gets foggy, when the answers are missing, when the ground under your feet starts shaking. That's when God leans in and says, do you trust me now? And not when the bank account is full, not when the doors are flying open, but when everything in your natural mind is screaming stop, and the Spirit is whispering go. We like control. We like clarity. We like stability. But God is not in the business of catering to our comfort zones. He's in the business of growing our character. And the truth is, growth doesn't happen where it's easy. It happens where it's uncertain. That's why God will intentionally allow seasons where the ground beneath you feels unstable, where you don't know where this is going. You don't know how he's going to do it, but he's asking you to move anyway. That's how trust is built. Think about the children of Israel. God didn't part the Red Sea first and then tell them to walk. No, he told them to move forward before the water split. That's not the kind of moment where you sit and calculate the risk. That's the kind of moment where you've got to ask yourself, do I trust the one who brought me here? See, faith is not about walking in what makes sense. It's about walking with the one who never fails. If your trust only shows up when things are going right, then it's not trust, it's convenience. Too many of us are waiting for clarity before we obey, but God says, you obey, and then I'll give you clarity. You want the blueprint, but he's only handing out one step at a time. You want the whole picture, but he's developing your faith in pieces. And if you're not careful, you'll miss your miracle waiting for perfect conditions. Some of us are praying for God to move, and he's waiting for us to step. Because faith is not proven in stillness, it's revealed in movement. You can shout, you can sing, you can quote all the scriptures, but until you're willing to take a step into the unknown, your faith is just theory. God is not trying to confuse you, he's trying to prepare you. The reason he hides some details is because you would sabotage the process if you saw everything too soon. So he takes you through detours. He lets you hit some dry places. He allows delays, not to punish you, but to position you. He's teaching you to trust him when it doesn't make sense. He's building in you a faith that doesn't rely on what you see, but on who he is. Because there will be moments in your life where you have nothing else to stand on but his word, and that has to be enough. You want to know when trust becomes real, when he closes the doors you prayed would open, when he takes away what you thought you couldn't live without, when he tells you to give when you're already lacking, when he tells you to go when staying feels safer. That's when trust stops being a concept and starts being a decision. That's when faith moves from your lips to your lifestyle. You can't learn that kind of trust in a classroom. You learn it in the valley, in the fire, in the storm. You learn it when the only thing you've got left is him. And let me tell you, this God honors that kind of trust. He may not move the way you expected, but he'll always move in a way that grows you. He may not show up on your timeline, but he'll always show up right on time. He's a faithful God, even when the path feels unpredictable. And if he led you to it, he's already gone ahead of you through it. But you won't find that out standing still. You only discover the power of his faithfulness when you dare to walk in it. So, if you're waiting on a sign, this is it. If you're waiting on confirmation, you just got it. God is saying, trust me enough to move, even if your knees are trembling, even if your heart is racing, even if the people around you don't understand. Take that step. I'll meet you there. Obedience to God doesn't always come with a preview. Sometimes God gives you a word with no explanation, a command with no map, an instruction with no safety net. And in that moment, you've got a choice to make. Do you wait for reassurance, or do you move in obedience? Because more often than not, God won't confirm what you already know he said. He's not looking to calm your nerves. He's looking to see your faith. And faith doesn't grow in explanations. It grows in action. There are times when God tells you to step, and everything in your life says, not now. Your emotions say it's too risky. Your finances say it doesn't add up. Your family says it's too soon. But if you're going to walk in obedience, you've got to be willing to look foolish to the world in order to be faithful to God. God told Noah to build an ark when there wasn't a cloud in the sky. He told Abraham to leave everything he knew without telling him where he was going. He told Moses to stretch out a rod in front of an ocean. Obedience isn't about seeing the full picture. It's about trusting the voice that called you. We like to negotiate with God. Lord, if you just give me a little more clarity, if you open one more door, if you send one more sign. But obedience is not a discussion, it's a decision. It's not rooted in how you feel, it's rooted in who he is. Sometimes God will ask you to do something that defies logic, and he won't give you the reassurance you're craving, not because he's cruel, but because he's calling you to walk by faith and not by sight. And sight will always ask for more proof than faith requires. Some of us are missing divine appointments because we're still sitting at the table waiting for God to give us a detailed plan. And God is saying, I already spoke. What are you waiting on? Obedience doesn't mean you're not afraid. It doesn't mean you don't have questions. It just means that your trust in Him outweighs your need to understand. If you're only willing to obey when it's comfortable, then it's not obedience, it's convenience. But the kind of obedience God honors is the kind that costs something. The kind that makes you move when your legs are shaking. The kind that stretches you beyond your logic and pulls you into divine purpose. You see, delayed obedience is still disobedience. Partial obedience is still disobedience. God isn't looking for halfway. He's not asking for your edits to His will. He's asking for surrender. He's asking for yes, yes when it's uncomfortable. Yes when it's risky. Yes when it doesn't make sense. Because obedience is where the supernatural begins. You can pray all you want. You can fast, shout, and declare. But if you're not willing to obey, you'll never walk in the fullness of what He's promised you. That job opportunity, that ministry calling, that relationship decision, whatever it is, if God told you to move, then your breakthrough is on the other side of your obedience. But too many of us are standing at the shore waiting for the sea to part before we take a step. And God is saying, put your foot in the water, I'll do the rest. The miracle doesn't happen before obedience, it follows it. You want to see God open doors, start walking in the direction He told you to go. You want to see provision, start moving in the assignment. You want peace, obey the word even when it costs you. When Peter stepped out of the boat, he didn't have reassurance. He had a word, come. That was it. One word, but it was enough to carry him on top of water, as long as he kept his eyes on the one who spoke it. Some of us are asking for a sentence, and God is giving us a word. And if you trust that word, if you act on that word, it will be more than enough. That's where the power is, not in understanding, but in obeying. God will never require obedience without purpose. He's not asking you to walk blindly. He's asking you to trust Him deeply. And even when you don't know how it's going to work out, He does. Even when you can't trace His hand, you can trust His heart. He's not leading you into failure, He's leading you into faith. But the only way to experience the fullness of His plan is to walk in the risk of obedience. So if He's calling you to it, don't wait for reassurance. Don't wait for all the details. Don't wait for the perfect timing. Just say yes and step. When God calls you to take a step of faith, it's never just about you. That's the part we often miss. We get caught up in our own fear, our own doubt, our own uncertainty. But what we don't realize is that our obedience is connected to someone else's deliverance. God doesn't just call you for your benefit. He calls you because there are people on the other side of your yes who need what He's placed in you. Your courage, your trust, your willingness to move even when it's hard, that could be the very thing that sets someone else free. Look at Scripture. David didn't face Goliath just to prove he was brave. His obedience brought victory to an entire nation. Esther didn't risk her life just for personal breakthrough. Her step of faith saved her people from destruction. Joseph didn't endure betrayal, slavery, and prison just so he could have a position in the palace. His faith preserved a generation from famine. Over and over again, we see that God uses individuals to unlock blessings for others, and that same principle applies to you. There's someone tied to your obedience, someone who's watching your walk, someone who needs to hear your story, someone who's waiting to see what faith really looks like lived out in real time. You don't even know it, but your quiet obedience could be a loud answer to someone's desperate prayer. Your yes might be the confirmation they've been asking God for. Your risk might be the example they need to step out of their own fear. That's why the enemy works so hard to keep you stuck. Because if he can paralyze you, he can delay everyone connected to you. We've made faith too individualistic. We've made it all about personal blessing and breakthrough. But real kingdom obedience isn't self-centered, it's selfless. It understands that we're part of a bigger story, that God's plan is generational, not just situational. He's writing something through your life that others will read. And the way you respond when it's uncomfortable, when it's unclear, when it costs you, that will shape the faith of the people watching you. You may not feel like a leader. You may not see yourself as an example, but you are. Every step you take in faith is creating a trail for somebody else to follow. Somebody in your house, somebody on your job, somebody in your circle, somebody you don't even know yet. And the legacy of faith you're building with your obedience will outlive your emotions, your fear, and even your lifetime. We've got to stop treating our calling like it's optional, because there's too much at stake. Souls are tied to your surrender. Marriages are tied to your faithfulness. Ministries are tied to your decision to trust God when it doesn't make sense. You don't have time to keep second, guessing what God already confirmed. You don't have time to keep waiting for perfect conditions. God placed something inside of you that the world needs, and your obedience is the delivery system. You may think, "But I'm not ready." You may say, "I don't feel qualified." And you know what? That's okay. Because God doesn't need your perfection. He needs your participation. He's not asking for flawless. He's asking for faithful. He's not waiting for you to feel ready. He's calling you to move while you still feel inadequate. Because that's how he gets the glory. That's how others see his power, not in your strength, but in your surrender. The enemy wants to isolate you. He wants you to believe that your faith doesn't matter, that your step doesn't count, that your obedience is small. But let me tell you something, every act of faith creates a ripple, and those ripples become waves when they touch the lives God assigned to your story. You may never know the full impact of your obedience on this side of eternity, but one day you'll see just how many lives were changed because you chose to trust him when it was hard. So don't play it safe. Don't hold back. Don't let fear talk you out of your assignment. Say yes even when it costs you. Step forward even when you're unsure. Move in obedience even when it's uncomfortable. Because your faith isn't just about your future. It's about the freedom of those who are following behind you. We've got this idea sometimes that faith means we're never supposed to feel afraid. That trusting God somehow eliminates all anxiety, all uncertainty, all hesitation. But let me tell you the truth. Faith is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move anyway. It's when your heart is racing, your knees are shaking, your mind is screaming, "What if?" And yet you choose to step out anyway, not because you're fearless, but because you trust the one who's calling you forward. God never said you wouldn't feel fear. What he said was, "Fear not, for I am with you." That's not a promise of fear being removed. That's a promise of his presence walking with you through it. And when you know he's with you, then fear loses its power to paralyze you. It may still whisper in your ear. It may still tighten your chest. But it can't stop you from obeying if your eyes are locked on him. When Joshua was about to lead the Israelites into the promised land, God didn't tell him, "Relax, this is going to be easy." He said, "Be strong and courageous." Why? Because God knew Joshua would feel fear, but he also knew that obedience isn't about waiting until the fear goes away. It's about trusting him enough to walk with it. Fear doesn't disqualify your faith. In fact, the presence of fear is often the clearest sign that you're on the verge of something bigger than yourself. Sometimes we wait for a feeling of peace before we move. But let me tell you, obedience doesn't always feel peaceful at first. Sometimes it feels like jumping off a cliff with nothing but a word from God to hold on to. It's risky, it's stretching, it's uncomfortable, and yet it's holy. Because in that moment, you're not leaning on your understanding. You're leaning on him, and that's exactly where he wants you. You can't always wait for fear to subside before you obey. If Esther had waited for fear to leave before going to the king, her people would have perished. If Gideon had waited to feel brave before he obeyed, he would have stayed hiding in a winepress. If Peter had waited for certainty before stepping out of the boat, he never would have walked on water. God does some of his greatest work through people who are trembling in their faith, but walking anyway. Faith doesn't mean you don't feel it. Faith means fear doesn't get to make your decisions anymore. It doesn't get to be the loudest voice in the room. It doesn't get the final vote. You can acknowledge the fear, but you don't have to obey it. Because you serve a God who goes before you, stands beside you, and walks behind you. And if he's calling you to it, then he's already made a way through it. That step of faith you're hesitating to take, it's not supposed to feel easy. That vision God gave you, it's not supposed to come without resistance. If it didn't scare you a little, it wouldn't require any faith. And if it didn't require faith, then it wouldn't require God. So if fear is present, good. That means your next move will have to be one that leans completely on him. There's no shame in feeling nervous. There's no condemnation in having questions. But don't let your fear become an excuse to stay where it's safe. You were not created to live in the boat when he's calling you to walk on the waves. And you'll never discover what he can do in you and through you if you keep backing down when fear shows up. What makes your faith powerful is not that you never feel afraid. It's that you trust God enough to move anyway. You get up anyway, you speak anyway, you build anyway, you apply anyway, you go anyway, because what you're carrying is too important to be silenced by fear. What God has placed in you is too valuable to stay hidden behind comfort. There's too much calling on your life to let fear run the show. So today, even if the voice of fear is loud, make the choice to move. Make the choice to obey. Make the choice to trust him with trembling hands and a surrendered heart. That's the kind of faith that heaven honors. That's the kind of faith that moves mountains. That's the kind of faith that pleases God. And that's the kind of faith that changes everything.